Howdy, folks. So, my vacation this long weekend was sort of cut short when Tesla, my main file server, disappeared off the network, and from the thermal sensors I have in my room, I could tell that it had completely powered down, which is very uncommon. It should not have happened. And anyway, so I had to drive all the way home from my family's place to here, and well, I was kind of on the way. I was kind of thinking about what could possibly have gone wrong. Could have been a CPU fan failure, could have been a power supply failure. There were no power failures, so the UPS was not, I could verify the UPS was still running, so there was nothing like that. And I don't know what I'm going to title this video, so maybe you already know. But, and this is going to be really hypocritical of me, but a while back I made a video on Molex to SATA power adapters and how to spot ones that won't catch fire. And in that I explained what to look for. And I seem to have ignored my own advice. And when I got back, this is what I saw. So yeah, obviously one of those bad Molex to SATA adapters completely melted. This one's actually pretty bad. And hopefully that's not overexposing. But yeah. That definitely caught fire there. This is one of those dual adapters, and oh, I don't really know. You can see the cable's completely destroyed, completely disconnected entirely. So I haven't touched this machine yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to take this stuff out of here and clean it up, because of course it's got soot all over it. All the drives do, all the other cables do. And I'm going to see if the drives survived. I would say probably unlikely. I'm going to see if the power supply survived. The standby supply I know still works because the LED on the motherboard was on, so it may have just gone into overcurrent and shut down, in which case I don't have to buy a new power supply. But yeah, I really don't, there's really no excuse. I completely just fucked myself by not bothering to replace that adapter. I think this is one of my oldest adapters, and I sort of grandfathered it in and said, oh, it hasn't failed in 6 years, it's probably never going to fail. Well, clearly that's not the case. So anyway, let me start extracting stuff, because this machine's been down for far too long, and I got to assess the damage. So it's been a few hours. I've been doing some errands, getting some parts. Sorry about the video quality. This is just, it's not I haven't prepared for this, and of course time is of the essence, so I'm not doing retakes or anything. So anyway, I've taken some of the discs out here. Everything has soot on it. All the SATA cables, everything, basically because the fire was at the bottom here, everything above it has soot on it. All these cables have soot on them. The bottoms of all the discs do. Even up in the corner, there's soot all up in here, because of course it all just rose up. So there's a lot of cleaning to do. But the important things, of course, are the discs themselves. And I can verify that all of the discs in this machine are still functional, including the discs, both the disc that had the adapter catch fire on it and the discs above and below it. I can put them in a USB caddy, I can power them up, I can read the discs, their smart status looks fine. So I'm going to say that the discs most likely all survived without any functional damage. Of course, they look a bit bad, but they still work, so that's good. That saves me from having to immediately buy new discs. I'm not going to replace the discs unless they actually have a fault, because I don't see the need. If they got some soot on them, I don't think that makes them instantly bad. So I'm going to be just cleaning them. As for the discs, I've been sort of cleaning them. This is the actual adapter here, and it's completely shredded. Of course, the cable's completely shredded. Everything is really nasty, and it's all sooty and stuff. So I'm going to do a separate autopsy on this. I'm not gonna deal with that right now. But the discs look fine. The disc that actually had the fire on it was this one, and you can see the SATA connector is a little bit damaged. I had to end up basically prying and scraping the broken melted SATA power connector off of it. It was very well stuck on there. But the connector is still there, all the pins are still intact, and of course the board is still alive. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking probably these 3 discs. I'm going to be taking the boards off of them, just take the Torx off, and I'm going to clean the underside of these boards because, of course, there's going to be soot and stuff on the other side. So for cleaning, I'm going to be using some just 99.9% isopropyl alcohol. It's pretty much all you really need. That and some paper towels, tissues, Q-tips, whatever I need to get into the nooks and crannies and get all the carbon buildup out. That's my my next task. I've powered the machine up, and the power supply is fine. So obviously the overcurrent protection is what finally shut the machine down. Probably when those 2 wires completely separated from the connector, they probably shorted out. So the Seasonic supply once again survives, so that's good. So everything's fine. I've gotten into the BIOS of the machine quickly. Everything looks fine. So it seems that all the hardware survived. It's just all sooty, and of course the cables failed. Those 2 Molex to SATA adapters. One of them was the bad type. Of course, that one's destroyed. The other one was of the good type. However, it melted a little bit because it was right above where the hot spot was. So I went out and I've actually bought 2 pairs of the double-ended cables that are of the good type. So I'm going to just replace them in this. And then, yeah, it's just a cleaning task. So let me just get to that and stop waffling and get this machine back up and running. So I've spent about an hour or so cleaning the drives. A lot of soot on a lot of stuff. Even the top disc had a whole bunch of stuff on the top side of it. So it was just a tedious clean pretty much. But anyway, I've got everything out of here. I've cleaned the drive bays and all that stuff, all the cables. I'm going to replace the SATA cable that was right next to the hotspot. It looks fine, but I don't want to risk it. And of course, I've got a bunch of SATA cables, so I can always just replace that. But anyway, the light is kind of fading, and I'm at the point where I'm pretty much good to just start putting everything back in, and I'll power it up and see what ZFS says. So I've all got it back together again, and I've got a monitor hooked up to it. So here's the moment of truth. Oh, it's booting. ZFS is initializing. It's coming up. Okay, well, let me log in and see what's going on. So what do you know, I've checked all the logs and everything came back up perfectly fine. ZFS is perfectly happy, no issues. It really came out of this unscathed, other than that adapter. One thing that I found which was kind of interesting is my app server, Watt. This is its Monitrix graph of system load, and you can see from the point when my file server went down, obviously the NFS shares that it exported went away, and basically processes started blocking because I have a hard option set on the mount, and they kept blocking and they kept increasing, and the system had a load of 35 or so before it came back online, and everything flushed. So that's kind of interesting to see. Also, one of my VMs got stuck in an infinite loop, which is running off of that file share. So it pegged one of the cores up to 100% until I managed to stop it in the morning when I discovered the fault. So But I mean, I still haven't rebooted this machine, and I don't seem to need to because it recovered all those shares. So that's cool. So this is the failed adapter here in a little bit more detail. This is actually another adapter. This is the other one that I pulled out, and you can see it is quite charred, and you can actually see that it actually started to melt there. It's got a little plastic drop coming out of it. So this thing got pretty hot, and I'm replacing it, of course, just as a matter of course. But this is the one that actually failed. So of course, this is what the end is supposed to look like. You can see it is one of those molded type, and the end that's failed, of course, is completely gone. It's completely gone. Half of it is just missing, and of course, these two wires here have fused together. So that would be the 12 volt and the ground. So I'm sure that right there is what actually tripped the power supply over current when those two welded together. That would have created pretty much a dead short. But on this side, there really isn't much to see. I mean, it's all just completely burnt to shit. It's probably, you probably can't see this on camera, but there is a little ball of metal right there. And I'm not entirely sure what the cause of that is. It could be that this actually got hot enough to melt the metal inside, or more likely that was already there from manufacture time, in which case that could be the fault. It could have been that there was a ball of metal in between two of the pins during manufacture, and that's what caused the tolerance to be too low, and what eventually caused, via maybe thermoelectric electromigration, eventually caused it to basically arc across. So I can't really tell. I don't have an x-ray or anything to look into this, but that'd be my guess. The thing is, I also saw another ball about that same size of just molten metal actually at the bottom of the case, along with some of the ash from this. So yeah, I can't really explain what happened, but what happened inside this anyway. But anyway, at this point I don't think I really care. This is kind of like my trophy. But anyway, so the moral of the story, or sort of the takeaway from this, is that I should listen to my own advice. I mean, I knew about this fault, and I kind of distanced myself from it, sort of saying that, oh, you know, this won't happen to me. You know, I've had these for a long time. You know, they're good. And really, of course, that's not the case. I really needed this sort of as a wake-up call to say, you know, this happens to anybody. It can happen to anyone. So, I mean, I never had to make this video. I could have just tried to keep a perfect image and just never showed anyone this. But I'm human. I make mistakes. And at the end of the day, as long as someone sees this and realizes that this is a real issue, then I've done my duty by making this video. So, yeah. I mean, this was probably, of all the, like, you know, when I first realized that my machine shut down, of all the things it could have been, this was probably the worst. But the outcome I've got, where really the only casualty was just one of these things, really, it's sort of the best possible outcome of the worst possible problem. So I am incredibly lucky, and I bet that there are a lot of people who are probably not as lucky who end up in this situation. I mean, I am absolutely amazed that none of the disks, none of the drives failed. The power supply is perfectly fine. I mean, really, the only damage was these, and I mean, that's like $10. I'm just amazed. So anyway, yeah, if you've got these, really take them out, and take them out now. Don't wait. Don't wait until they fail. It's not worth it, because for you it could definitely mean a lot more expense or possibly data loss. So anyway, I will try and get back to all the stuff I have to do this weekend now that this is back up and running. And anyway, hopefully this taught you something. Thanks for watching.